Welcome to episode 204 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman, coming to you on Friday, November 3rd. Covered a lot this week. This is podcast number 6 of the week. I did miss Halloween, but I made up for it. But wanted to end the week with season predictions for Rutgers men's basketball. A lot going on the scarletfaithful.com. We have plenty of football coverage, wrestling previews from Eric Vesper. We'll be covering both matches on Friday night, Duke and Cal Poly, and then also plenty of hoops coverage as well. Had the season preview podcast with Jared Carino earlier this week. Always a lot of fun, and I wanted to get some season predictions out there, including where I think Rutgers is going to finish in the Big Ten, regular season record, postseason projection, some more specific things as well. So let's just start. There's been a lot of talk, in terms of Rutgers playing faster, more up-tempo. Pikel's concerned about the defense. So my overall thoughts on the team is I think defensively, I'm less concerned. I think that there'll be a work in progress. I think that the biggest key to the non-conference schedule and the biggest key to the first 2 months of the season is avoiding really bad losses. If Rutgers, listen, they're if they drop a couple non-conference games against other high majors, if they lose at Seton Hall, lose at Wake Forest, Mississippi State, you don't want to lose all those games. But if you lose any of those games, it's not the end of the world. And the key is avoiding bad losses at home. You have BU following Princeton. Princeton, I know people, the fan base is split on should Rutgers play Princeton long term, simply because of their potential net ranking, being quad 3, quad 4, depending. Obviously, a neutral game helps. I really think Monday's a tone setter. It's a big tone setter. You really need to win that game. But, avoiding losses to BU, Bryant, who else do they play at home? That's, they play St. Peter's. All those types of games, they need to win those games, of course. Georgetown is a high major they cannot lose to. Although I think they'll be better this year in terms of their, analytics and net rankings and all that. But if you can get through the first 2 months while still learning how to play with a relatively new roster, learning how to play with a new style, but you get through the first 2 months, non-conference, if they go 8-3 at worst without any bad losses, I think that's a win. Obviously, I hope they do better than that. I know everybody does, but that would be okay. And then as you get into January, things start to mesh. And I do think that the Big Ten is wide open. I other than Michigan State and Purdue, who are clearly the top 2 teams, I really think you could go 3 through. I don't want to. Rutgers lost to Minnesota at Minnesota last year. We'll take that game to the grave. But they're looking like, they're looking pretty bad again. I think Nebraska might be a little bit better. Penn State, it remains to be seen how they're going to look. But I think that if you look, honestly, 3 through 12, maybe even 13, I feel like a lot of teams could finish a lot of different ways. And it's very trendy for the national media right now to be picking Rutgers to finish 9th or 10th. Everyone's picking them 9th or 10th, 9th or 10th. I just think that it's not very creative, and it's not really digging deep in terms of what I think this team can be and what I think their strengths will be and how they can. I think this is a team that's going to get better as the season goes on. So let's first talk about the defensive concerns. How they defend around the perimeter. I think that, they are smaller this year. So I think that the length in terms of defending threes is going to be a little bit more of a concern, closing out on threes. Even if they get there, they don't have the same length on the perimeter in terms of getting hands in people's faces. Mulcahy was 6'6", Cam was 6'4", Caleb, 6'6". Jermichael Davis is 6'2". Noah Fernandez is 5'11". Simpson was there last year, but he's 6'3". So that they don't have that same length on the perimeter. So I think closing out on threes fundamentally is going to be so important because they're not going to be able to make up for it with the length of their arms in terms of getting hands and faces. Now, I do think ball pressure, they're more athletic, And that was a big reason they came back against St. John's the way they did, was with ball pressure from Simpson, Fernandez, and Davis. And I think it's going to be a real asset. And I think that this team's going to be able to profit in transition offense big time. So the whole fast pace, up tempo, I think that that's where you're going to see it is the ball pressure in the half court leading to transition offense, turnovers leading to transition offense. I'm really fascinated to see how the bigs, and I wrote about it today in my front court preview, how the bigs are able to start the fast break off of defensive rebounds. How is their passing? We've heard about Cliff working on his passing. Can they deliver good outlet passes to get out into the break and be able to take advantage in transition? I think that, coupled with the fact that Rutgers has something they haven't had in a long time, and with Peichel maybe ever, all their guards can create on offense. And not only just their guards, Gavin Griffiths, he's not just a spot up shooter like Cam was. He can create off the dribble. He can score in mid range. He can get to the rim. And then, of course, you have Simpson, who was their best and their only threat, really, to get to the rim off the dribble last year. But you couple him with Noah Fernandez, who's a master craftsman in terms of just creativity and being able to find open teammates as well as shots for himself, even when a lot isn't there as the shot clock's winding down. You have Jermichael Davis, who was just a total rocket ship just in terms of blowing past defenders against St. John's, getting to the rim. Something I said in the Carino preview podcast was misinterpreted. I said, Rutgers hasn't had a spark plug off the bench in a while like Davis. What I meant specifically was, yes, you had Jacob Young, but he started a lot of games too. And then obviously Derek Simpson last year. But I think Davis's skill set is unique to both of those guys. I think that, he's quicker, even quicker than Jacob Young. And I think that he is just going to be able to give them a burst of energy. I think although he's so quick, I think he is more under control. And I think he has a very good IQ. And that's not to say that Jacob Young didn't have a good IQ. I think he did, but he was wild at times and a little bit out of control. And I think Davis is honestly more under control in utilizing his speed. And I think that being a freshman versus a veteran, that kind of spark mentality, it's almost a little bit more impactful in terms of what it means to the team, in terms of the attitude and kind of, it's going to lift up everybody. You see this freshman come off the bench and just be fearless and get to the rim and create and wreak havoc defensively. He's similar to Jacob Young, but those to me are a little bit differences. And what I meant in that comment, I did not expound on it well enough. So I understand why it maybe came off a certain way. And Derek Simpson, he was a spark off the bench at times last year, but he wasn't necessarily asked to be one. Like, he didn't have really a role defined until the end of the year when he was the only guy that could create off the dribble. So I think that they know what Davis is, and they're going to look to utilize his strengths from day one. So you also have Austin Williams, who can get to the rim. He's got really, he's very efficient in drawing contact at the rim and getting to the foul line. He's not the best foul shooter, but he's very efficient in terms of getting into the lane, getting to the rim, finishing at the rim, and drawing contact. And, he's probably going to be their fourth option in the backcourt. So Rutgers is much deeper offensively in terms of how to create offense. Now, I don't think they're going to be the best shooters, and that's not to say they're going to be a bad shooting team from three. But, Cam Spencer was one of the best 3-point shooters in college basketball last year. I think Gavin Griffiths can be as well. But Cam was, and he did struggle to get a shot off at times. He couldn't really create, but he was a knockdown, reliable shooter that, he had big games where he made 5 or 6. I think Gavin can be that. But I think that's something to note. Andre Hyatt's a big X factor in terms of 3-point production. He's never really shot at a high percentage, but he has shot at a high volume. So if he continues to shoot at a high volume from 3, can he be more productive? That's a key for sure. Noah Fernandez, he's a career 38% shooter from 3. So I think Rutgers could be as good, if not better. But I don't think that's what's going to dramatically change the offense in terms of the trajectory. I think what's going to do that is their ability to create. I think they're going to have less droughts because of it. They're going to be less stationary. I think the ball's going to move in the sense of they might dribble a little more, but I think ball reversals, boom, penetrate to the rim. They didn't have that before. They would ball reversal, and then they kind of not have anything, and they pass it back around the perimeter. I don't think that's the type of offense they're going to have this year. I think it's going to be ball reversal, boom, attack the gaps, get to the rim, find Cliff in open space, or get to the rim and take a shot, or kick it out to an open Gavin, open Andre, open Noah, if he's not the one driving. So I just think that they're more versatile offensively in the half court. I think they're going to be better transition offense. So I have two bold predictions. My first, and it's it's funny because for Rutgers it's bold. It's not necessarily a bold prediction in terms of college basketball, but I think this will be a top 50 KenPom offense in terms of efficiency. Rutgers has done that a grand total of once ever, dating back to 1997. So what is that, 26 seasons? 26 seasons of KenPom. They finished in the top 50 offensive efficiency nationally once. And it was Kevin Bannon's 1998-1999 team with Jeff Billett, with Dante Jones, with Rashad Kent, with the great Joel Salvi. Who else was on that team? Was Greer on that team, or am I totally? Jeff Greer was on that team. Rob Hodgson, great. I just love that team. Earl Johnson was his. That was his last year with the team. And that team, they had, 4 guys in double figures: Dante, Greer, Billett, Hodgson. I can't see the efficiency stats that they had, but that was a good team. They went 19-13. They just missed the NCAA tournament. And it was a really fun team. And they finished 40th nationally in offensive efficiency. No other Rutgers team has finished close to top 50. There's been some 60 finishes, for Peichel in terms of historical. Let's see, the 2019-2020 team that won 20 regular season games, they finished 72nd with a 107.9 offensive efficiency. The team that finished Bannon, that was 40th, finished 108.9. That's the best efficiency score that anyone had. With Peichel's offense, the 1920 team was 72nd. The 2021 team was 82nd. The 21-22 team was 96. And last season was 151st. So talking about a huge step forward, I think they will no matter what. But I think they're going to be top 50. They're right now projected 89th. I think they're going to be a lot better than that. I really do. I think, again, they're not going to be maybe, shoot the lights out from 3. They are going to shoot more threes, I think. But I think just their versatility on offense, they're going to be more dangerous. They're going to be more creative. They're going to have less droughts. They're going to have more options. They're going to be harder to defend. I just think offensively, I'm not saying they're going to average 80 points a game and be the Harlem Globetrotters out there, but I think it's going to be the best offensive team that Peichel has had. There might not be an alpha dog. 2 years ago, what'd you lose, right? You lost Harper and Gio, who were alpha dogs on offense, that were ISO players that could hit big spots or big shots in big moments. Last year, you lost the alpha dogs. Cam was a little bit of an alpha dog, but he couldn't create on his own. And they had no one who could create. So that was really, in hindsight, that was the biggest issue. This year, they might not have a true alpha dog yet. It might be established. Simpson has a chance to be an alpha dog in terms of taking shots late in the game. I think Noah Fernandez does as well. Gavin Griffiths potentially also. Then there's, Cliff. How much do you go inside on crunch time? I think they will down the stretch for sure. But if you're trailing by 1, do you go to Cliff down low? They very well could. They're going to have a lot of options. And I think that's the thing. Even though they might not have one sole alpha dog as of today, they're going to have a lot of options and be harder to defend offensively in the half court. Even though they're going to want to get out and run, even though they're built to run, I think they're going to be really good in transition. But I think that's the key. They have multiple guys that can create off the dribble, and most of those guys actually have high assist rates too. Noah Fernandez and Austin Williams have really high assist rates efficiency-wise. So I think Simpson, that's part of his development. And then Jermichael Davis is going to be part of his development as well. Gavin also. But I'm just really excited about the offense. Again, not necessarily going to be the most efficient shooting three-point offense, but I think they're going to get the rim to a lot. I think obviously they have to finish layups. They have to hit their free throws. I am a little concerned about the free throws, but I think offensively, this team is going to be a lot more exciting. And I think defensively, my point, it's scheme. Steve Peichel is a great defensive coach, and I think they're going to figure it out. I think it's going to take time, but I think this is a team that could be the polar opposite of last year. They might not, jump out in the standings in the Big Ten. They might be kind of hovering in that bubble line for a while. And then I think in February, I think they're really going to start to click. I think defensively, scheme wise, they're all going to be on the same page. Simpson made a lot of strides defensively last year and was a much better defender in February. I think Gavin Griffiths can do the same. I think that Woolfolk inside is going to be a Swiss Army knife for them. I think in terms of being able to play the 4 and the 5, Peichel's been really high in his development, being the most improved player this offseason. And then you have 2 anchors inside, in the paint with Cliff and Mawat. So that is so key. How much, once Mawat comes back, and how long it takes him to get into stride is going to be big. And I think that, if Mawat once he gets back into the swing of things, you may see more of a press. And I think Mawat at the top of a 1-3-1 could be really dangerous. So let's get into some actual predictions. I kind of talked about what I'm thinking and why I'm going to predict what I'm going to predict. But I think that it's also going to be a team that the depth is going to show up. I think you're going to have different guys step up at different times. I think you are going to see, an 8-9 man rotation that's going to be pretty steady and pretty consistent. And I think anybody could step. And if you remember back to the 2019-2020 team, that's kind of how they were. Harper and Gio were still establishing themselves as alphas. But, you had Yaboa who would step up. You had Jacob Young who would step up. Obviously Gio and Ron. Miles Johnson had some big games. You had different guys, Caleb, that were able to have big moments and really pick the team up. And I think you're going to see a lot of that this year. So my second bold prediction is I think Mawat Mag is going to be not only all Big Ten defense, and again, this is bold, so it's, the probability of it happening, maybe it's not so good, but I think realistically it's going to take him a long time to get back to the rhythm and the level he was emerging offensively. He was really clicking offensively. I think it's going to take a while for him to get that back. But what I do think is he's going to be even better defensively. I really do. Cliff is going to be better. I think Wolf is going to be better around him. I think, with the perimeter guards that they're going to have, they're not going to be jumping passing lanes. They're going to be putting ball pressure. And I think Mawat is going to be able to be versatile, used in different ways. And I think that my bold prediction, second, number 1, top 50 offensive efficiency nationally. Number 2, Mawat Mag, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. That's my second bold prediction. He wants it. He's talked about it with me being the goal. I've had him on the podcast before. And I think that he's seen a lot of film. He's watched a lot from the sidelines. He's gotten stronger during his rehab. I think the way this team is and where he's going to best serve them is going to be on the defensive end. Not to say, I think on the offensive glass, I think, offensively, he's still going to be productive. I just don't know if he's going to be his game was starting to blossom in terms of shooting threes, things like that. I think it might take a while to get back to that. And I think defensively is where he's going to be a cog. Caleb is gone. They need someone to step up. And I think Mag is the guy. And I think it's going to be, I think he's going to be in the running for the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. And like I said, my bold prediction is he wins it. So in terms of big picture predictions, all league performers, I think Cliff, will definitely make all Big Ten. First team, well, you have Zach Edey, so that's going to be tough. Maybe they include him as well. Every year he's gotten better. How he is on the post offensively, that's the big question mark for him. Does he have post moves? Is he better passing out of double teams? Can they find him more in space in the half court? All questions, but I think, every year has gotten better. I think he'll get better this year. I think at worst he'll be a second team All Big Ten guy. I think Derek Simpson is going to be an All Big Ten player, whether that's third team or honorable mention. I think he's going to take another step forward for sure. And I think he means a lot to this team. Jerry and I talked about that the other day. And I think Gavin Griffiths is going to be an All Big Ten freshman team selection. I think he will continue to get better. Obviously, defensively, it's going to take a while, but I think he's going to find his groove offensively and give Rutgers a different kind of weapon offensively as well. So I think those guys there I had something written down about best bench player. I think it's up for grabs, and I think that speaks for depth. It could be Jermichael Davis, could be Antoine Woolfolk, could be Austin Williams. So maybe Austin Williams is a little bit of a smaller, a quasi Yeboah type. I kind of think that he could be. He can defend multiple positions. He's a good rebounder for his size. He's a smart player. He's not, he turns it over a little bit. He's not the best 3-point shooter, but I think with the way the team is made up, he's not going to have to do those things as much and focus on his strengths. So I think the bench is going to be much improved, and I think that any of those three guys could win best bench player this year. And then to wrap up, I think Big Ten finish, overall record, postseason projection. I think this team's going to win 20 regular season games. I know that I don't know who's picked that or not, if it has been picked. I've seen a lot of 17, 18 wins. The national guys, like I said, everyone's picking them 10th or 9th. I think this team can win 20 games. I think they're going to get better as the year goes on. I think I'm going to say 9-2 in non-conference play and 11-9 in the Big Ten. I think they're going to be in a ton of games. I think the veterans that they have that are new good shots, I think they're going to be in a ton of games, and they're going to be able to win. They're going to have another winning record in the Big Ten. Last year they were 10-10. Only 4 Big Ten teams have won 10 or more games the last 4 years. I think Rutgers will be able to do it a 5th year. 20-11 overall, 11-9 in Big Ten play. I think that's a top half Big Ten finish. 6th or 7th, but I think that that's where they can be. Listen, a couple breaks their way, they could finish better. They could finish worse, of course. But I think that this team is, I think they're going to be loose. I think they're hungry. And I don't think that this is a transition year in the sense of when you say transition year, sometimes you think step back. I don't think that's what it's going to be. I think it's a transition year in terms of an evolution of where the program is headed, in terms of style of play, in terms of what they can be offensively while maintaining that defensive identity. And that's what I think will happen. And I think they're going back to the NCAA tournament. So, I'm not making those bold predictions because I think that's just fair predictions. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. It's exciting. I'm super psyched for this season. I think that it's going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be entertaining, and I think they're going to win. And I think it's going to be a very likable team. I mean, already down 20 to St. John's in the second half, and they storm back. And with rotations that weren't even going to be the rotations. I think another thing, lastly, Pikel's going to experiment a lot with rotations. I think he could play 3 guards at times. I think he could play Gavin at the 2. He could play big. He could play Wolf at the 4 with Cliff at the 5. There's a lot of different lineup combinations. I just think they're going to be a lot harder to defend. They're going to be a lot harder to prepare for. They're going to be more unpredictable in their lineups. I'm really excited to see Steve Pikel, mad scientist, being freed of having certain players that are slated in for 35 minutes a game and being able to really pair matchups and change things up and get multiple guys involved. And I think that it's just the competition on this team is going to benefit them in the long run. And you're going to see this team get better and better as the year goes on. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Scholar Faithful podcast once again. Have a great weekend. And I'll be back for rapid reaction after Ohio State. And lastly, announcing the winner of the Scarlet Faithful giveaway for 2 tickets for Princeton, Rutgers. Corey Cordasco has won the 2 tickets, followed me everywhere, and multiple family members, and ended up at multiple entries and got picked. So thank you, Corey. And thank you for everyone who followed me on Twitter and subscribed on YouTube to take part in this giveaway. Appreciate the support. I'll do another one during the season, maybe like the Mississippi State game. We'll see. But exciting season ahead, and can't wait for it to start. And hope you tune in for all my coverage. Have a great weekend.